Okay. Is there anything else? I personally don't think that, but that's something from that we've proposed for us. Yes.
What's this? It's not a procedure.
So this is, I was looking at about the suggested, this is from the Society for Local Council Clerks. It's not our, there isn't an established procedure, but this is their suggested order.
As Lindsay said, is Felton Parish Council, but my concern is, could we could be waiting 3 or 4 months for the things to
Chair,
we could.
this is a procedure which has been followed many years in the past by the Parish Council.
And which I was elected by, so I think that's.
Well, you were a single,
Yes,
so you were just co-opted on. It's when there's more than one
Yeah.
applicant, you've got to have a secret vote.
It doesn't say it has to be secret.
Well, it's got to be, because eventually one candidate is dropped out and then you vote for 3.
Yes. But that still doesn't mean it has to be secret.
Well, it's always the procedures, has always, I've been involved with, is a secret
I'd
vote.
rather
The
not-
same as you have in an election.
I'd rather not do it in secret because that's we need to get rid of all the members of the public if we've got a
No, you don't have to get rid of all of them, you have your voting papers. Sorry, secret vote is not, it's voting papers you have.
Okay. My personal opinion would just to vote by hand. What's from around the table, please? Opinions?
I'm just very excited by all the people on here tonight. And also what's happened in the last 24 hours. It's absolutely, I'm really excited by it, and I feel that.
Don't get too excited, Gemma, because lots of these are for the garages, so nothing not here.
Not for the garages. All right, well, I'm still very excited by all the people here.
It's nice to have people
Yeah,
here.
but have we got people here that are wanting to be elected? Right. Okay, so we've got 3 here tonight, which is, 4. Excellent. 5. No. Sit on your hands. It's still absolutely exceptional, and I think that is absolutely brilliant. But I think on the basis of that, I just need to know what everybody wants to input and things, and anything about anybody, because sorry, I don't know if I've missed things over the course of today even, but I don't feel ready to vote at this particular moment in time, if you see what I mean, simply because of who we've got here and what's happened, because it is exceptional. As I say, exceptional circumstances. So, even though we've got this, I don't feel like I can raise a hand just now.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. Can the clerk confirm how many applications she's actually received since this agenda has been published and circulated round to the councillors?
Since the agenda has been published, 3.
That you've received.
Yes, by 2 by John and then myself.
Which have all been circulated to all the councillors to consider.
So it's 4 in total.
Yes, it's 4 in
Yeah,
total.
4 in total.
But he says since the agenda.
So it's 3.
And just to confirm, was that
We've got Chris Campbell, John H. and Alan.
Correct.
Chris. John Eaton.
Not here.
Not here. Well, those were the 3 that I
Right.
saw.
So
So that's what we're saying.
We did
There
see
we go.
Oh, right, I thought you were here for.
Fiona did put the application. Fiona
And
did
Fiona,
in a long
yeah.
while.
Yeah, Fiona's gone forward.
Thank you, Chair. It does say on the agenda, anyone interested in being co-opted to the Parish Council should contact the clerk, giving a brief background on themselves and their reason for wishing to join
It
the
does, but
council.
I understand that the article that Lindsay put in the bridge had also said that they could just come to the meeting. So we've said 2 different things in 2 different places.
Well, I would rather go on the word of the clerk than the word of the bridge.
We do, but I feel like this, if you look at the back page of this, we have to treat all candidates equally. We cannot be seen to be unfair, and I think because we weren't clear that it had to be given to me in advance, I don't think we can rely on that, so that might be a reason we have to defer it.
But I do agree that I think we should have more than just somebody saying, I want to be a councillor. We should need a background
Would
as
be useful.
other people have submitted in the past.
As they haven't come out till today, I haven't seen any.
Okay.
So I feel unable, like John, to be able to cast an authority vote this month.
Okay. With that, that in mind then, slightly disappointed, but the proposal is we put off the co-option till the next meeting.
Sorry,
The-
is that co-option for both situations?
Yes, we have to co-opt it for each post separately. So we put the co-option for each of the posts.
Chair,
until
Chair,
the next meeting.
do the vote separately.
We do, I've
You
done
do.
them both separate, I've looked up Charles R. Baker, and it says
So,
that
so
if
we-
there are more candidates, I'll read it out. If there is more than one vacancy and the number of candidates equals the number of vacancies, so if you have 2 for 2, all the vacancies may be filled by a single council resolution. But if the number of candidates exceeds the number of vacancies, each vacancy must be filled by a separate vote or series of votes.
so we have to vote on the first.
Obviously things have changed.
So we have to vote on the first one, and then we have to vote on the second one. But I would also like the clerk to contact the 3 recent nominations, asking for a letter stating their sort of background and what they can bring to council, just like we've said in the agenda, and those that have been co-opted in the past have to do. We've already had one. So, is everybody sort of agreed with that? If that was put forward as a proposal?
Well, in view of Anne and Gemma's situation, I don't think we'll do anything else, Chair.
No. Okay then.
We add to that, we formally adopt a set of procedure.
Yes. This one?
Well, that's the one that's been used in the past, so it makes sense, wouldn't it?
Check.
Well, this is different one.
Can we record a sort of apology, because we appreciate you all coming, and it's slightly frustrating that things haven't happened, but I think there's a reason for that.
So those that are interested, sorry, could I ask that, well, Claire will probably contact as well, but you do send an email to Claire to
I'll
express your
contact each of you.
concern and
Yeah.
state what you think you can bring to the, because there's obviously 4 of us, we've got to make a decision somehow, so we're going through those emails and looking at the candidates, each candidate. So,
So how many candidates is there? 4 for 2?
yes. At the moment, we may have
Please no more.
I think we'll not have to have a cut-off date. I think it seems unfair on the candidates that have applied, if we keep it open and open and open.
Well, that would be unfair on the one that did get all the paperwork in time for the one vacancy we had.
Yeah.
We now put another cut-off date because.
Well, that's what I'm saying, we need to cut off now, we cannot accept any more, because it's not fair on the ones that have applied. Because effectively, we could, if we'd seen the information sooner, we could have walked it tonight, so it seems unfair to accept further people coming forward.
Point of order, Mr Chairman, that the one candidate had submitted their letter in good time several weeks ago.
Yes.
So that has been circulated to all the councillors. So you are in a position to vote on the one candidate who has put forward their letter for this one vacancy.
Bearing in mind that actually you don't have a policy, the policy that actually has been provided, has never been circulated before to councillors. I have actually brought that up about policy and an adoption policy for the Parish Council, and it was poo-pooed at the time. And if you are going to have a policy, you have to adopt it before you then can implement it. So you won't be able to co-op
This is what I
on
said.
that policy next month. You're talking about another 2 months.
This is what I'm saying.
We can publicise a policy before the next meeting, we can adopt it at the beginning of the meeting, and then proceed.
Okay.
So we start on the reorder of the agenda.
Consensus of opinion from the councillors, please? Yes. Oh, you?
Yes.
Yeah, consensus,
Yeah.
So postpone it to the next meeting. And, all right. Apologies.
No, it's fine.
If you
But
want to-
I agreed with Tony May for the secret ballot. That was part Tony.
Well, I mean, if you were to present your case through the medium of dance now, I think it'd take a bit of time.
can stand on a chair and tell them the history.
I can drag the soapbox through.
Yeah, our standing orders say it wouldn't be secret.
No, we don't have a provision in ours, we only have a show of hands provision in the standing orders, so we would have to change that or exclude, I think.
We don't have a show of hands.
No, we won't
Well,
do a show of
we can
hands.
sort that out before the next meeting.
Yeah.
Right.
It won't happen before the next meeting. Apologies. Okay then, what was item 2? Disclosure of interests. Do you have any disclosure of interests? No. Item 3. Well, I think item 3, public questions. Members of the public may ask questions and make representations. Public questions are limited to 10 minutes in total, and it may be necessary to limit the time allotted to each person in accordance with the standing orders. Please note the Parish Council may only take a decision where an item raised is listed elsewhere in the agenda. So, for those that are new here, if you raise a question now, we can discuss it, but we can't take a decision on it. So, I invite questions from the floor.
Just have, with your approval, I've got a few questions on item 6, 7, 8, 15 and 17. Can we just use that within the agenda, because you
I'm
might
happy
actually
for those
ask
to be
them?
brought up during the agenda.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm here from Newton Ward, Swollen Parish Council regarding item 12. So
What I'll do is I'm going to ask to make item 12 the next one if you're happy. So,
I appreciate it.
so you can shoot off. I'll make item 12 now.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Any questions from yes?
Garages,
And your question is?
what now what's happening with my garages?
That's a very good question. I'll tell you, what we've had is the council were approached by, do you know who it was? It was part of Northumberland County Council, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the housing department,
The
it
housing-
was
Jodie Sainer.
Sainer, thank you.
So we were approached by Jodie Sainer to say that they've got a proposal, they want to make some garages into affordable housing for elderly or disabled people. And they wanted a meeting of council members to see if we could see anything that would stop it outright to start with. But it wasn't to be discussed openly because they needed to contact the garage owners, etc. first before anything could go any further. So it came to us, we had a meeting and we could say, well obviously you've got to approach all the garage owners because they're going to they're going to want alternative parking, but providing it's okay with them, we could see nothing to stop it. We could see nothing wrong with their plan for the development. So they've obviously now contacted you, have they?
Well, that happened now.
Yes. So you know as much as we do now then?
No.
In fact, you know more because you've been contacted.
What
So
has
we
the
didn't
letter
even know
said?
you'd been contacted.
Because we haven't had a copy of the letter.
Well, that's the other just that more or less somebody's going to chuck one of the street line.
Mr. Chairman, can I just say that the garages here are not the only ones that Northumberland County Council are dealing with. They're dealing with them in all the parishes. So it's not just this parish that would be losing garages, it would be all of them.
Yes, I know, but a lot of the garages are in a state of disrepair. Serious disrepair, which is also causing vandalism and costing the council a lot of money. So they've done, as far as I can find out, they've done a blanket policy across all the garages throughout the county. So I don't think the ones at Felton are in disrepair. No, tidy.
Nor are the vandalised.
No, precisely.
I mean, the wind took the roof off, but
Yes, I know, but that's.
it's not the same thing.
I think they're being a bit. They've just got a blanket policy.
To be clear, we had a very preliminary meeting with them, and we did say that the garages were occupied, they were necessary, they were needed, and that, you know, and I said that I thought it was a little bit unfair taking the only garages out of the village, to which they agreed to notify before making any final decisions. We did also mention that losing the garages puts a further risk of, you know,
Strain parking.
strain parking and things like this. So they are absolutely aware that the garages are important to the village. So we didn't just let them, we didn't just let them come away with an idea without fighting for your corner. So because it was something that we are very aware of that some people have had these garages for a very long time.
Well, I've had a garage for 40 years.
They did say that people who needed them, they would help make alternative arrangements. Now, where the next empty garage is, I don't know, but you know, I can assure you we did make it very obvious to them that the garages were used and needed. And
I was just about to say, they did say that they were trying to find alternatives.
they did say they were trying to
There
find.
isn't any. There's like what Tory's got them lock-up garages, but you can't even get a car in there. They were made for like the Ford Fiestas and ISL Minis and
What they were supposed to be doing was contacting the residents to see how many actually use them for
I would have done that.
storage of cars, because most of them they think are just storage. But, so they've done that, have they?
We haven't seen a copy of the letter, and we haven't got anything.
So, like I said, you know,
I haven't seen a design, I haven't seen anything.
No. It was just a preliminary meeting from us.
Well,
To see any immediate stoppers. I mean, did we know that the land was contaminated? Did we know that there was anything like that? And we couldn't see anything that would stop it, provided we contacted the residents and.
But they didn't contact the residents immediately, because I had a resident came to me, in one of the like a house resident rather than a garage tenant, quite upset because obviously the garage tenants had had their letters, but they hadn't been in touch with. They did say, I'm sure in that call, that they were going to contact the garage owners and the immediately neighbouring properties. I thought so. I let her know that she needed to get on with that stage. If she was doing it in phases, she needed to progress it because people knew about it from having the garage letters.
I mean, that's the garage is part of our community. That's it. You know.
Do you know how many garages are affected, as in how many don't want to be lost? Approximately.
18, isn't it?
That's 19. There's 19
It's
big
19 in total.
How many are they talking about
15,
taking? All of
16.
them?
So they would
18.
leave one of the three. They'd leave the one next to the allotments. There's
Right.
3 blocks. The block next to the allotments would be left, and the other 2 would be converted as well.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, the thing is that every year we get people requesting garage, and that demand is very much there, as the same as with allotments here. I mean, I think the very nature of the village, and the fact that we've got a high proportion of residents that are using on-road parking and don't have garage facilities and things, means that even those that are in different areas of the village are, you know, that there's a demand for them there to have that. Even it's not even about storing cars; it is about storing, you know, other things and having, you know, storage within the village. And to me, you know, much as I absolutely love the concept of what they were suggesting of utilising poorly used buildings and to make them an asset to a community. But I think that those garages are an asset to the community, and that if they're saying, "Oh, we're going to make an alternative garages," well, really, why are we changing the use of them from something that's being used and can't find a novel resolution to the housing crisis that we have here? But I think there needs to be, you know, more thought that goes into this, and you know, I mean, this is the first thing since I knew the meeting was happening that I couldn't attend. That there's been progression with this, or communication with members of the public and those that have the garages.
We haven't been
No, we haven't
updated
been
at all.
updated.
Well, we didn't even get the follow-up.
I mean, I think
I mean, there's only 3 here, but there was a lot more going to come, but they're just in the dark. They're getting two different things from the council.
See, the thing is, we are as well. You know,
I was wondering
we have
if you're going to support work.
Well, absolutely. That's why we're here.
Yeah.
You know, and if it's really important to keep your garage and you're willing to sort of fight for it, which I'm sure you are, then we're here to support the people of the village. And if the consensus is,
I mean, I've got a car, and where I live, at the end of Superview, no way am I going to get in there at night.
Yeah.
And John Felton, no way he's going to get in, and another 2 all in, no way.
right.
Sorry, listen.
Clearly, the Parish Council needs to get its act together now and back you up and contact the county and saying what is going on. We'd like clarification of your proposals, because we're not in agreement with losing garages.
That's fair enough.
Could I ask, would the new occupants be just in the immediate parish, or would they be from Blind?
No,
we did ask that question.
Yes, we did ask. They would fight very hard for it to be local people first, signpost, and then the local area, so Thurston, Swalham,
But you couldn't guarantee.
because we did make that up.
and then finally they would open it up to the wider thing.
Yeah, I think the whole point of these buildings is to keep people within the community that would otherwise have to go outside, and to then make housing that they are in available to larger families
So
and
would
things.
younger single people qualify?
No.
Because
No, I think
that is
it's
one
very-
of the.
If they were disabled, it was for elderly or disabled, so families with.
You see, that's one of the problems in the village. A lot of the people I grew up with all had to leave because of either the house prices or there was no council accommodation.
But I think the idea was that hopefully it would then free up other houses in the village because people might go into those.
Well, it will, yeah.
Right.
Then you've got to think of the disruption that's going to be. Doing Barnes Road, past the school, they'll be on for months.
It doesn't have that appearance when you look at the plan of how they do them, where they literally lift the roof and drop it's like a prefab unit that goes into it, and then they re-roof it over onto the top. I don't think that's something that we need to prioritise as a consideration, although it is one. It's more about those garages are an asset to the community, and whether or not we need to be keeping them, and if the requirement for that housing is, we know it is. When we've looked at housing within the village, we know there is a massive requirement for retirement living and easy access housing. It's something that we're really, really short of within the village. But I think at the moment what we're saying is that we can see that those garages are an asset, and if they're not going to replace us, it doesn't make sense to me for them to be doing that. So I think it's something we need to follow up further.
Has any land been identified for alternative parking? Because even on the main street, where Narrows, where the shop is,
Part of their, when we were discussing it with them, when you're going to put the houses there, as you know, towards the school, there's a bit of land there now, that's grass and a little bit of tarmac. They were going to make that parking for.
That's a bit contaminated.
Yeah.
We told them that.
I've sent them the report that we've got.
well, they'll have to excavate that level.
Yes, but that was their plan as a payoff for converting those garages. They would. Right, we're up to our 10 minutes, I'm afraid. So thank you very much for.
As long as you keep it informed what's happening.
I'll ask County Council to confirm with us where they've got to in the process and what their proposals are, and then we can at least know that.
As long as they're going to help with that.
There was a planning document which I came across which had the red line of the garages outlined. Unfortunately, I didn't copy the link, but I have since tried to find it again, but I can't see it because I knew it was supposedly private, yet I was visibly seeing the red line drawing on it.
So you have to take into consideration the traffic flow past the school, because
construction traffic.
It's not just construction traffic, it's just once the houses are occupied, even these old infirm people could have quite big people carriers and things, and will be coming in and out. And if the people who are not parking in South View come round, then you're going past the school entrance.
So can I just ask one more thing? If you don't have a copy, could maybe one of the residents actually send you a copy of the letter and have notice of the eviction?
So if you could send Claire a copy of the letters you've received.
I'll just drop it in. I'll drop it.
Is that all right? Yeah, great. And I'll take a copy and give it back to you.
Thank you. Right, what I'd like to do then is bring item 12 up to the next item, please, that Mr. Anderson from hopefully leaving once it's need to sit all out.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. So the Leamington Lane Bus Shelter. To discuss the condition of the Leamington Lane Bus Shelter, degree action to include the possibility of removal and or proposal to Newton-on-the-Moor Swarland that it should take over the maintenance of the bus shelter. So the bus shelter is in very poor condition. The roof has now fallen in. It's unsafe really. Nobody can go in and out of it. The buses aren't going to take, or we don't think the buses are going to take on that route again. So we don't see any reason to keep it going. So your thoughts?
Well, it's a difficult one. I haven't managed to get consensus from everyone in our council yet. Just contacting people. I've just had a recent look at it myself to just get an idea of what might be involved cost-wise. Obviously, new roof, tension to windows and bits and pieces like that. So there'll be certainly a cost to that. Cost to demolish it as well and dispose of it, I suppose. But we are keen to try and promote or encourage bus service back into or towards Swarland. That's something we are working at the moment, and that is a possible option. Probably a cheaper option for the bus companies would be to come in and just go down Bottom Road through to Newton and back onto the A1. Although we would obviously prefer them to come up into Swarland where the square is. Realistically, we don't know how likely that is to happen, but we are pushing for that, and that would be if there was a stop there. It would be something that might be more compelling for a bus company to actually use and service.
Well, we certainly have no inclination for paying for repairs or anything like that.
We appreciate that. Appreciate that.
Because it was actually built by the Swarland, Newton and Swarland Parish Council in the first instance. And when it started to go into a derelict state, we actually approached the Newton and Swarland to see if they would like us to demolish it, and they said no, because there may well be a bus route that comes through the place. So there has been some history with this parish council about it.
Yeah. And also appreciate, if we're wanting to keep it as a viable shelter, it's going to need some work, and from a safety point of view, yes, the roof needs doing as well. So I think there will be a willingness to do that. People are happy for us to do it.
We're happy for you to take it over.
Presumably, it would still remain an insurable asset for Felton, though.
Can we not transfer that?
You can't check because
It's on our land.
it's on your responsible area.
Okay.
But we could have an agreement in place where they maintain, presumably, like an agency where.
Apologies.
Yeah. So what I would propose, if it's acceptable to you guys, would be to try and defer that so that we can get all of our guys to agree on contributing to the cost of doing it, or paying for the renovation that needs doing. If you're willing to do that, we'll come back to you before your next meeting.
To amend it to wait time.
The date. How long is this?
Well, our meeting's before your next one, so we'll be able to tell you before your next meeting.
Within the next month.
Yeah.
Thank you. So in that case, we're happy just to postpone it to the next meeting.
Thank you.
All those in favour? Thank you very much. Yes. Thank you for turning up.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks,
Good. Right. Right, back to number 5. Minutes of the previous meeting. Cool. Do you have something on this? Number 5.
It says 6, I think.
6.
Right. Anything from the councillors on the previous minutes? Okay. Simon, can I have a show of hands? Are you happy to accept that as a true record of last meeting, please? All in favour? Thank you very much. Item 6, finances. To receive the financial statement. So if you have a look at page... Oh, that was to follow, wasn't it? The financial statement to follow.
Oh, so yeah, you've got that.
The page the other day. Was the financial statement to follow.
Came through on Saturday. Where?
So it could be done to the end of March for that. No points on that's just to receive it, so there's no points on, sorry, did you have points on number 6?
It was 6B.
6B, okay then. And then 6B to authorise payments. Points from the council first, any points from the council members? And the member of the public had a question on this?
Yeah, actually, I'll let this person.
Yeah, it's February 2022, the Finance Committee minutes show that there was a document referred to the pay and contract working group relating to the clerk's contract. Since that meeting, I've not seen anything in the minutes since then. And then coming on to this, there's a payment here of £818 back pay for the clerk. And I'm not quite, can you explain the background to this?
Yeah, so the back pay, so the SCP national agreement is a pay scale, and they've only just agreed, it's supposed to be agreed every year, so that it's like a review of the pay scale every year, not to keep with inflation, although whether it does or not is a different question. And it gets negotiated, for some reason it gets negotiated every year rather than being linked to any particular other pay scale or inflation rates. And they've only just agreed, it went to the unions, they've only just agreed now the pay scale that should have taken place last year in April. So it's a whole year's worth of update to the pay scale. I can provide the link to the document.
No, so it was just the.
So it should have been
delayed from
last
year.
So is your contract as of last year tied into that pay scale? Because what I'm referring back to is the discussion that took place in the Finance Committee in February, where they referred the discussions we're having to the working group, contracts working group, to discuss your contract. And there hasn't been any output since then, as far as I can see.
The contracts working group haven't met, discussed them in today.
So my question is,
My previous, so when I was appointed, my terms of appointment relate to I'm on the SCP national agreement pay scale.
Chair,
I think the reference to the contracts working group was for them to have a discussion about Claire's time rather than
and those three contracts.
There's three contracts to look at. So it was the cemetery, the caretaker, the clerk, and the cemetery clerk. There's three contracts, and a wage scale, etc. There was also that thing about the back pay where they hadn't had holiday pay or something like that, which was agreed.
Chair, Claire is an employee by Parish Council, so she doesn't really come into the contracts working group, because the contracts working group was specifically for contracts within the thing. And Claire is not under a contract, she's an employee.
She must have a contract of employment though.
She's on a contract with employment,
But we said
the contract working group was established to assist the clerk when works contracts were being put out.
That's correct.
I'm referring to the minutes from the Finance Committee, which makes direct reference to Claire's contract and pay being referred to the contracts working group. That's in the minutes.
No, because it was then brought up at the November or December meeting, December Parish Council meeting, where we closed the session because we wanted to discuss it, and then it was decided that the contracts working group would look at that. Why was the Finance Committee looking at it? The contracts working group would look at the contracts. If you remember that happened at the November meeting, in the closed session. So, yes, did you have comments?
no, I made mine.
So this is basically relating to a pay rise that wasn't acted on until now. So, anybody, any other points, any questions?
Just on the minutes, there's this ongoing one, on the minutes. Request to amend society details, and what society?
Can I just ask where we are, because we're just discussing the payments at the moment.
Sorry, I thought it was on minutes.
No. We voted the minutes, so we approved those.
What about
I can quickly answer the question though, it was the History Society wanted their website details updated.
it just is, you made society, it didn't see a society.
So, with no other points, can I have a show of hands to authorise the payments as listed on page 6, please? All those in favour? Any against? Sorry, was that a favour?
Oh, yes.
Favour, yeah. Thank you very much. All in favour? Any against? No. Item 7, Felton Surgery, to review progress and agree any action required. For those, I had the meeting and Mr. Kay joined me on that meeting with the chap from NCC, who came up when I was looking at the footpath and I stood on the bit that was adopted by Bell Way, the bit that was adopted, and he said, oh, that won't be a problem, we'll get that adopted, we'll sort it out. And I've since had an email from, I can't remember the chap's name, that I printed off. Sorry? Christopher Mead, who says, Mead, yeah.
As in when?
Highways Development, yeah, Highway Development Manager. The path is adopted. It does. It's now the new PROW. It's the public right of way because they had to change the right of way, so it's now the public right of way. It does mean that it has footpath status and not general highway, and it's recorded on our public rights of way map, which it is. So I had a look at the public right of way map, and it is recorded on there. I appreciate the public right of way map are not the same scale as highway maps, but it would require some additional steps to record those areas on the general adopted highway plan. As an aside, it does also mean, in part, that the footpath has also been adopted under section 38. But it doesn't appear to me. But he said, whilst in future I may take the opportunity to tidy up the double adoption, neither is problematic from a maintenance perspective. So they are happy that the maintenance falls to them from that perspective.
Mr. Chairman, sorry.
Yes.
Can I add, as regards the Felton surgery, the PPG had approached Assura to ask Andrew Cooper where we were with it, and this is a reply sent over. Over the next few weeks, they are looking at options to progress the scheme. We will evaluate options to viably bring forward development. The construction sector is particularly challenged with major cost increases across materials, labour and fuel. This is having a significant impact on projects like Felton and needs the careful consideration before we engage with patients and wider community. I will be in touch with the PPG and PACE in coming weeks to update and discuss next steps.
Okay.
So I came in today.
Also, for those who aren't aware, from the PPG, they received notification via a Facebook link, bizarrely, that Felton is looking to link up with bizarrely Lindisfarne, and I can't remember, there's another one up the north. So it wasn't right.
Is it called is it the North?
Well, North.
Chair, be careful what you're saying, because Lindisfarne Health is a group of practices. It's not linking up.
So it's the Cheviot Medical Group,
Yes.
Glendale Surgery.
Yes.
What have we got to do with Glendale Surgery? The Northumberland Health, which runs Rinton and Felton, and the Well Close with the Medical Group, have applied to NHS to form a single partnership and run a practice.
Yeah,
So that may well have an impact as well.
but Mr. Chairman, can I just say that it's all to do with the group that we're in, which is Well North. And
Well North is a practice, I think. But Well North is a very practice.
yes, but they all want to be linked together, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not moving away from the fact that we could get a surgery in Felton. It's to do with, I'm quite sure, guidelines from the government to make sure that the practices are much larger.
I was believe it was an administration practice merger, as opposed to a practice merger.
Well, on the letter that Dr. Reid sent to us, it states that no patient's notes will be able to be accessed by anybody but Felton and Widrington surgeries. And as you said, to share administration staff. So
This was just to let you know,
Point of
because
information.
this could have an impact on the progress of the Felton surgery. It's just to keep you updated, that could have an impact on the Felton surgery. So, yes.
Actually, I think Councillor Blackburn was right. Well up north there's a group of, I believe 6 practices, Felton and Widrington being one of them. Obviously there's the Cheviot group, and again I'm not sure how many practices there are within that, and it's this amalgamation. But I think they're not being quite correct with you, because if you're part of the Well up north grouping, you could actually make an appointment with another practice within that grouping, so they would have to have links to your medical record.
Just to be clear, it's not an administration or administrative merger. It's 4 contracts being replaced by 1 NHS contract. There will only be 1 contract.
Well, on the letter that we got from Dr. Waite, it states that, you know, the questions that were being asked, and one of them was, would our records be allowed to be seen by other practices? And it stated on what he said, no.
Well, if you potentially talk about other practices that wouldn't be part of the group, but this person's correct, that it is going to be.
Thank you. I just stop that because it's not to do this bit. Just for those that want to know, Dorinda Jacks is now chair of the PPG. She will be sending questions about this. So if you've got any questions you want to put forward, contact Dorinda, and she'll put those questions forward to the doctors and the
But certainly, well, I mean, I've seen the questions that she's going to ask, and the answers are actually given in the list that we were given from Dr. Waite. So, you know, and that's it.
Okay.
I couldn't see the point of asking some of the questions because the answers are already given.
So bear in mind that path is, the maintenance of it is not going to be an issue. Have we seen the new email regarding the adoption of the land or the takeover of the land?
You mean the new plan that came through,
Yes.
which has the old line on it?
Yes.
So
Which is
that's
It's just back to the same, isn't it?
October 21.
So they've just sent us, what they did is last time they sent us one plan that we've had before, and now they're sending us the other plan that we've had before.
Yes. And what we've not had is the email that we asked for saying we will give you the whole northern and whole western boundary.
So they still haven't resolved what they've.
Is that,
The what is doing this now?
could I ask a question?
Sorry, yes?
Is there sufficient parking at the new surgery for staff and patients?
There's 20 cars. So we estimate 6 or 7 of them will be staff, and you know,
It's just the same.
even if there's 10 staff, you're not going to have 10 patients at the I would have thought, because you've got time slots and things like that. But I think if I was right, it's 20 parking for 20 people.
what you want to know about, Chair, it's going to be dispensing practice. So there's people coming and going for picking the prescriptions, so you could have 20 vehicles.
Okay. Those dispensing,
I mean,
they won't be there for long.
But also
I know what I'm saying on the main street.
Yeah.
It's laid by it, not on the
Yes.
street.
There is spare land left over from the Assura development patch. So if we needed more car parking, no problem.
I'm hoping some people might walk there as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm
So
sure,
sick
I'm sure.
that they
Just
have-
making a point about, did you say 4 contracts going into 1 contract?
That's not to do with it. That's if you
The
look at this
problem,
report.
just as a point I would like to make, is that if you've got 4 contracts going into 1 contract, the 1 contract probably won't get the budget of the 4 smaller contracts. It'll be a penny pinching operation. 4 contracts with 4 budgets. They
Seems
go into
inverted.
1.
So we still need to send another email, please, just
Say
confirming.
it, yeah.
Yeah. We can't progress until we've had in writing, and it's not just sending us documents which are exactly the same as before.
Which that was it.
Anybody got anything else they'd like to add on the surgery? Any updates? Any further updates? No, so I'm afraid still no further forward on that. Number 8, the report from County Council Thorn. Have we had anything in writing, so nothing from Trevor.
Is the rumour right that he was having a photo shoot on the main street on Saturday?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is right. The electric chargers are now working.
No, they're not.
Okay, well, the electric chargers have
They
been
are.
available.
Somebody plugged into
Where
it.
should they go?
Someone put
Well,
it-
somebody's put it tonight. And they
Oh, I
were
know that,
working on
Tony was
Saturday.
having
Yeah.
a mayor with them.
Yes, they asked if we wanted it.
No, that was
They
before.
wanted a parish council thing to be, so be a
I was there.
spotlight. Were you there, were you?
I was, yes, with my
No, I
car.
wasn't.
Have you got to provide your own cable?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, an update from committee and working groups as required. Have any, since the last meeting, have any committees or working groups stood, or have any committees or working groups got anything they want to update the committee for Parish Council on?
The Recfield Committee work has progressed. What was the lump of land under the old bramble patch in the northeast corner has been scraped off, so we're ready to get that cleaned up and seeded for the coming season, and work on molehills has progressed to good effect.
We're organising a working group to tackle the boggy area. There's a work party together to install some offshots for the field drains on the eastern edge, which we're still working on a date for getting that sorted.
Okay. We'll obviously put that around so we can get
Yes.
volunteers.
Yes.
So we've got quite a few volunteers,
Oh,
just
We've
for
got
records.
names, it's a case of getting paid.
It's just,
Sorted.
Okay.
We have, it wasn't an organised look, but we have had a walk down.
Oh, sorry.
We have to walk down the southern boundary of the wreck to see whether it would be possible to put a walking area in there. And it looks like it may be achievable. Again, it would be a working group. I would think would have to do the job because, you know, it is steep in areas, but it is something that I would like to, you know, work on.
Yeah.
It is actually a beautiful part of the wreck. And I
It
think
is.
would be-
I spoke with an ecologist from Tyne Ecology who was out doing like that survey. Part of that area is classed as ancient woodland. There is a portion on the map that is, and she, as they do, expressed slight concerns over the idea of the project.
Yeah.
I think Northumberland County Council has their own ecologist that would come out and assess it and things. But we are likely to come up against more force than I think we would anticipate with it.
but we could, it depends,
But I think
which areas
it's
we did and which areas
exploration of things. The portion which I think is classed as the ancient woodland and protected site is it's confined to probably what is it the south the south westerly portion of what we're looking at. So it's like a strip next to the river that you can see on
we're
the map.
talking the other end, aren't we?
Yeah.
Because that end's the steepest anyway,
Yeah, right,
whereas the far
okay.
end's got
Yeah.
there's already people who've made an informal.
Oh
it's
yeah,
already got.
it's there, but it's as soon as we
Yeah,
start
yeah.
formalising and things, and they'll have to come out and
But I think that's
do,
the other end.
yeah, but I think even the bit that's there, she's a really full ecological mapping and things when you're looking at a project to do something like this formally. Although she did have some good ideas about what we could do with the area that's actually underneath the cables, which we won't be able to plant with like high growing trees and things. But I think it's definitely worth further exploration. But we do need to go on.
Thank you, that's good.
Yeah.
Yes, sorry.
Chair. Ancient woodland
Yeah, I know.
is a load of collywobbles.
All right.
Using that description.
So it
I'm
would
not
be-
getting you,
No,
Darren.
but I we're going to jump through slides. Whilst I was having there and paying the 300 quid, I was going to make use of it.
Trying gangs was going through all those scrub down there, bird nesting, etc. And I remember it.
Thank
So
you.
there's no ancient woodland there, whatever. I mean, ancient woodland over 100 years old.
I know.
Right, thank you.
I mean, I
Any
know
other-
part of it is part of that area is classed as an SSSI.
But we'd have to check all of these things. It's very
That's
initial
right.
stages. I basically dragged John down there. He wasn't wearing appropriate footwear.
But I think it's got high possibilities for what you're talking about. And then if we can have the riverside, which is next to behind more which is an SSSI, and the public can use that. The only reason why they can't use the
And they're
riverside.
using it now, so it would just be about putting a proper path, the same route that they're already using.
Yes.
Alright. We sort of, the reason why we want to do this is, you know, the Groves is well used and beautiful, but not necessarily accessible by everyone in the village. And I think the recreation field is definitely a draw to tourism and recreation, and I just think it is a worthy project. And I think it's one of the things, you know, one of the things we're talking about you know, about fundraising in the village to make things happen. I think this is a really good idea. It can, you know, nature can certainly be at the heart of it.
Yep.
And I just think it's justified what we do for the people of the village, you know? And I would like to look further into it. So.
Excellent. Any other meetings sort of? No. Standing item 11. Update from Northumbria Police. There have been no crimes reported in the Felton area between the 15th of February and the 9th of March, which would have a wider community on the
That was last month, wasn't it?
That was last month. Oh, sorry, I printed off the wrong one. There was nothing for this month either.
Why the chairs?
But there was nothing for this month either. So yeah. Printed off. I apologise for that. Another quiet month. They say. 12 we've done. 13. 13A Queen's Jubilee to consider a request from Mrs Espedo for a grant of £125 to be used to buy commemorative coins to be given to the children at Felton Primary School.
Sorry, my only comment is would have, although Mrs Beddoe requested it, she wasn't clear that it was being requested by any particular organisation. It would need to go through an organisation rather than her as an individual. So I think it's from the village hall, but she didn't specify that in her email. Is it not?
It's from the WI.
Oh, the WI. Okay, that's fine. As long as I thought it was from somewhere else, how she phrased it, but she didn't specify.
Yes.
Thank you.
So yes.
As I said last time, I think this is a waste of money.
Yeah, I would rather issue them with a pack of wildflower seeds in all honesty than this. And that is a parent of a child at Felton First School. I'm sure they'll be delighted with them for 5 minutes. And that'll be it.
Well, you could actually make a wild flower garden rather than every child getting that for less than £125.
Yeah.
Not that it affects you. I think the Maple Set Board purchased it, but that's their fault for purchasing it in the first place.
May I just make a comment? I believe that Mrs Beddoe actually approached the school with the idea of the coins, and it was something that they were interested in. So it's not as if they haven't actually asked the school. So,
yes.
So just to bear that in mind.
How many children are in the school?
Too many.
It's about 70 or 80, isn't it?
It's more than that, no.
More.
There's 30 in reception, 30 in reception nursery, 30 in year 1, 2. There must be the same year 3, 4, year 5, 6, so 120.
And they all come from Felton?
Yeah.
Or do they come from the wider area?
They come from Warkworth, Accrington, Felton,
Red Row, Broom Hill, yeah, Swallows.
It's a big mix. It depends. It's becoming, in some ways, because it's now a busy school, it is becoming more local as you go down the school because there's fewer spaces for people that are non-catchment now.
Personally, I don't think it's the best idea. However, I do believe we have a budget for donations, which we have money left in. So if it, you know,
Yes.
if the WI have got good enough reason for them to do it, then you know we have some money to spend. So.
We had £500. We donated 200 for a bench. That leaves us 300 to my reckoning, and it starts again in April.
We'll start with that.
Yeah.
Starts again.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes, we're in April now, Chairman.
I mean, if they really want it, if the school say they want, WI say they want to do it, I don't have a massive issue with it. I just want to make sure that is actually what they want. I'm happy for us to, you know, give a donation for some commemorative thing for the kids, but I just want to make sure it's the right thing and it's actually being considered. I don't want to say somebody had an idea, they've written to school said, oh yeah, we're to have them type of thing, and for it to then get bounce back and things, I think it just needs to have a bit of thought through. I hate waste. I absolutely hate waste. I hate, you know, yeah, and I just want it to be something that's going to be appreciated. and have a long lasting effect for kids.
Some of them might not even get home before they're lost.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, vacancies are awfully cheap.
That's
If
what
it's
I
for
was thinking.
120 kids.
They've bought them already, and that's what the price was.
Oh, they've been bought already.
Yeah.
How many they bought?
Enough.
No.
Well, whatever the number is that they've, I don't know the exact number, I just know they've been purchased.
Should we be spending Felton money on things that are not?
I think if they're coming to our school, they are, a member of our community to a point. I'm not going to say that my kids' friends aren't going to get something that mine is just because, he happens to live in Felton, they live down the road, and
Well, you can't, with children, you can't differentiate.
You can't
It's either all or nothing.
And I think, but if they're at the school, they're at the school. But if they've been bought, they've been bought, and that's fine. It's they're probably doing some consultation for that, and it's not for us to decide. But
surely we should have made the donation before they bought them.
You had the request before
We
the.
did get the request, but then it arrived after the agenda, and even though we then rearranged the meeting, but because I had COVID, we literally just reissued the same agenda.
The description is coins. I take exception to that. They won't be coins, there'll be some sort of medallion.
It won't be currency, will it?
It's just, yeah.
I mean, I'll not lie, they'll be appreciated in my house, but that's because my husband's a sort of backfire.
They'll be chucked in the
You don't have Felton.
I think we've had enough discussion on it. We'll put it to the vote then. So, all those in favour of this donation, show of hands, please. 1, 2.
If they've already been bought.
On the basis that we have a budget which we haven't spent,
Yes.
then yes.
Yeah.
All those against? 3. Abstain? I'm afraid I have to abstain.
I'm abstaining.
Because,
Was it 3 all?
yeah,
We've got to
because,
pass the vote then.
if I, it's only because I've just realised it comes from the WI, so I think I have to declare an interest.
Well, it's because I think Lindsay's.
Too late.
I've just realised, which is why I'm abstaining, so I think you become chair for that and you have the...
I think just something there about vice chair. Sorry.
have we put you off yet?
No.
My opinion on that one is if one child enjoys that medal, that's all that counts. You could inspire one child.
Well, I would have voted against it because it hasn't got Felton written on it.
That's 4-2 now still. So I would have voted for, but
Does anyone want
that's...
to change their vote?
I would have voted for, but I feel I have to abstain because I've got an interest.
I did wonder, Chair.
Yes, and it's only when he said it comes from an organisation that I realised. So,
Can you contact Mrs. Bellow and say that the handhelds are vacant? I think it's a very fair point, that.
Thank
It is a very fair
John,
point.
thank you for, WI, so thank you for that.
That's all right.
Really, really generous.
so 13B, to consider further the plans for the tree to commemorate the Jubilee and to agree the next steps.
I have some good news.
Right.
I have been, if you remember the last meeting when we were talking about this, I was texting Scott to try and get some information out of him. My horticultural experience is not as good as I thought it was, and I had Felton Can at my place on Saturday, proving how bad my horticultural experience is. However, Scott has said that if we are planting in a wet area, an oak tree is not a good idea, and has offered to talk to whoever needs to be talked to about it, and also said that the new crematorium would like to donate a tree, and he will install it, and he's also doing the same for Thurston. So he said if it was accepted, he would like to get in touch and he'd like to give you a commemorative tree.
That's very generous.
I think we should refuse that.
Excellent.
Very
You
simple.
say you try to say.
He said if it was wet, probably an ace or such like, but that's...
The site where that tree fell down, but it is very damp, which is why we said yes.
Actually, it is very damp, but the other point was, it was the electric pit that they had dug where they joined the electrics with the street lights is in a similar position to the tree, so it's just something to be aware of when you come to position a tree.
So can I propose that we contact Scott to thank him and take over on the offer, and then, you know, he's more than happy to talk about it, and he said that he would do it, and he's doing the same for Thurston. I think he's doing the same for somewhere else as well. So, yeah, I would like to propose that we contact him about that.
All those in favour?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I'll contact him, John, but if you pass him on, thanks for that.
Yes, thank you. 14, Parish Council petition on vulnerable Ukrainians. This was Gemma's.
Yeah, so I've had a chat with people that are on the church committee and others about it. It doesn't, I mean, from general feelers, I think there's a few people that actually applied to take refugees. But what we were saying is what we really could do would be a resource bank, which might make people more likely to put an application through. I mean, Richard and I have been at like lengthy discussions about it and decided that we're not currently in a position to do it because we're having work done on the house. We only have one bathroom, and we just don't have time to support people. It's the time factor. But say if we were in a situation where we could say, well, we could provide weekend respite to a family, and you know, and a toy bank, books and things like that. Then there might be other people that kind of put their own input in there for the resources they can provide if we were to have any kind of community effort. So I was going to speak to Hannah about whether, I mean, I don't want her having to field the whole thing through Felton Thurston Matters, but I think we do need some kind of community network that could, you know, provide that kind of resource bank, which is what we were talking about. And the church was saying like something similar to what we had, you know, for like kind of during COVID, and you know, for the what we're saying, like during Storm Arm and whatnot, is that type of thing where people can kind of put in what they can, you know, offer to the situation of things. Because as far as there's only one person that's actually saying at the moment they're taking someone, but it may be there's a lot of people in my situation that really want to give practical help and have people within the community, but can't go the whole hog. So that's what we were talking about. So I'm in communication with the church committee at the moment about that, and hopefully something in the next couple of weeks we can actually make some headway with it. Did anybody else have any other ideas or anything they wanted to add to it?
This was discussed at the PCC, the church PCC, and the church is signed up to something called Sanctuary, which is part of a national charity, and the diocese are coordinating offers and organisation around Ukrainian refugees for the whole of Newcastle diocese. So I only know of one person who is a church member who's offered room, and there was quite a lot of discussion around the fact that it's highly unlikely that people will be sent to Felton because we don't have, apart from the school, which is oversubscribed,
it is completely.
we don't have the resources to support people in the way that larger towns could, but we can still be part of a support network. So we're basically waiting to see what happens and how many displaced people come to the north east and to the area.
Certainly in the bridge, Kayla put forward for donations, and she was inundated, so people obviously would be supportive of this.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot that we can do in the way of, you know, fundraising and donations in that front. But this was more if we actually were to have people within the community, you know, staying here in the short, medium or long term, and how we can support that as a community.
Just remind people of the work that's going on at the moment, the very hard work for the fundraising, for the lunch and the evening meal and the raffle with some very generous donations again from people around. So there's a lot going on in the village already.
Yeah.
Some excellent work.
I think, you know, if I would love to think that we could, you know, host a satellite community within Felton, but I think at the moment it is looking unlikely. But that doesn't mean to say that there isn't a lot we can do. And I think even, you know, if we do end up with a larger community within Newcastle and things, is to kind of, you know, host short people on, you know, as I said, like kind of like weekend respite and things would be something that we could consider. But I think we just need a bit more communication. But I think as a statement, as the Parish Council, can say that we're fully supportive of all endeavours. You know, whether or not we do have people resigning or we're supporting from a distance.
Is everybody happy with that as a statement from the Parish Council?
Yes, Chair, but my concern is if you want to do resignations for thousand things, where's the old storage? Where are you going to store it? Because
But I don't think
the village hall here is bursting at the seams.
No, but I don't think we would need to necessarily host
I
it.
don't-
It would be more like a lending community.
It's like a lending thing. It's like, you know, if somebody were to say, I'm hosting a family, they've got young children, but I don't have a high chair, I don't have this, I don't have that, as a, you know, as a community to say that we've got, you know, people there that are supporting to lend and donate to households so that they can at short notice.
I mean, I think that sort of happens informally anyway, because I
It
know
does
I
happen
lent out.
informally, I think it's
Yeah,
like
I
just
lent out toys to
encouraging
someone
that.
that's having a young family.
Yeah.
But certainly if we are involved with the people from Newcastle, they seem to have huge facilities for storing things and
Yeah.
obviously sharing out. And quite often you might find people from communities, as they are, would be more happier being near a town.
Well, that is why they ended up getting hosted there. It's just a horrible, hopeless feeling to be in a rural area where you really, really do want to help and be involved with that. And, you know, I think in a situation where us as a country are hopefully, you know, if we are allowed by our government to have people and host here, is to be here and not be involved with that. You know, I'll be disappointed by that if that is, you know, we can't do everything in our power to be involved with it.
So the proposal put forward is that we as a council put out, sorry, what was it again?
Did you write it down?
Supportive of the Ukrainian.
Well, I wrote down that we as a parish council fully support all endeavours I suppose to welcome and support Ukrainian nationals in our community.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, that's fine.
And I think it might just, when we want to get people, then it'll start becoming more apparent what that needs to look like.
If we go.
If we get them.
Any comments on that before we put it to vote? So all those in favour of that as a statement from the council? Thank you very much. Item 15, correspondence received. So you should all see the list of the correspondence received. I don't think there's anything else. Did you have a question on this?
I did. It was about the public right-of-way footpath. There's an email from David Francis. NCC have agreed to Highways England's proposal to dispense with one or possibly both footpath underpasses at the Pulkett Bridge Felton bypass.
Are we talking about the Felton Park Loop?
Yeah.
I think so,
Because
yes.
I'm absolutely furious about
Yes.
this.
Chair, can I say I've read a lot of the paperwork here. It does not mention the path on the north side of the river in any way at all. It's only referring to the south side, which initially was going to be put underneath the highway and dumped onto the cliff face. That was the initial proposal, but obviously they decided they don't want to do it. And the county council has given way and done this great diversion. And I don't think Thurston has been considered on this at all. I think it's an absolute disgrace. But I've read the document which David Francis said, referred to, and it doesn't mention the path on the north side of the river, which is St Oswald's Way.
It might not mention it, but it says it's closing both of them.
For construction works, yes.
No, it says closing both of them. It doesn't mention construction.
This is an absolutely major thing, because I think if we are to lose any of those footpaths, I mean, it's a major part of village life, and like it's almost like our culture to have those walks and access to that land. I mean, obviously they can't, for agricultural purposes, close the underpass to the farm at Felton Park.
Well, that's going to get extended.
Right. Yeah.
I do know
But
that.
I mean, I started to read it and I was like, I actually can't believe what I'm reading here. I need to get my head around this even, better.
It's crazy.
It is absolutely crazy. I think
It's huge assets in
Yeah,
the village,
I
both for
think
locals and in people coming to walk.
yeah, it's
sacred.
It's
unnecessary.
Well, it is unnecessary.
Yeah, no,
It's Oswald's way.
Do we need this as an agenda item so we can
I
fully
think
discuss
we
it?
definitely need
Do
to.
we
I think
need
we
to
all
all need
need
to
to.
have a meeting sooner?
I think we need to jump on this.
Yeah, I totally
And I think
agree.
we need to
Sorry?
get Trevor Thorne as well.
Chair,
Yeah.
we went to a meeting with highways at Morpeth.
Yeah.
Richard was there, I was there. And they are happy to come and talk to us at any time, is that what they said?
Yeah. They didn't mention this at all.
Doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah.
So can we contact the footpaths officer,
Oh, yeah.
raise a complaint, tie in Trevor Thorne with it, and ask them what the plan is?
I could certainly the St Oswald's
If we
Way.
can do that before the next meeting so we can discuss it at the next.
And can you actually publish that on the local Facebook page, because that it needs to be public.
Yeah, I think if people are aware of this, I think we'll have an absolute uproar within the village.
Who's going to do that?
Quite rightfully.
And maybe publish who we need to contact, who, so the members of the public can then start writing to them.
Yeah.
Yes.
So do we need a bit like a...
I can do that. I'll look at it all tomorrow and see what I need to refer to and which bits and what documents and things.
I think the documents are very important.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
So I'll make sure I can find links.
Talk to the jury doctor.
I will.
Yeah, I'm happy to have a go through things with you on Friday, and if that's not too late.
Yeah, well, I'll try and we'll have to work tomorrow, so I'll try and get some done tomorrow, and then I think, and if we need to have a meeting before the next one, I'm just kind of conscious that we don't want to sort of let it go away, do we?
Okay, planning, I don't think there's anything new on planning. The last meeting, so it's just again to receive the list of the planning things. Ongoing matters, this is the new list now, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it's sort of tried to catch it all up. Yeah.
Thank you.
And now I'll add the fun as we go.
Yeah. So it's just to receive the list of ongoing matters.
If you're going to have a question on it.
Oh, yes.
Well, the one really was potentially the red phone box. I know I brought this up a wee while ago and it was going to be put to the Property Management Committee. Actually, I don't know why it did have to go there. It was that the Village Fair Committee have money available for funding for projects. The red phone box fits into that.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to go to the Property Management Committee. It can be something that the Parish Council themselves can agree to actually apply to this fund for a starting amount for the £3,000 that's needed to refurbish it. That's the problem. Might not even have any money left now because that's like 3 months ago. So can something be done with that one, please? Otherwise, we're going to have to raise even more money.
Right. I can certainly contact the people, the restoration companies that I talked to previously, and obviously material and expense has gone up.
Yeah.
So get a new price and continue with that.
Thank you.
Did you have this?
You could ask the bridge singers to do a fundraising concert.
Yes,
because we
did.
have a special
We did.
song.
We did. Well, yes, we did ask the bridge singers, and they said they were quite keen. So we need to.
We need to get on the planet.
Get that started from
Item 18, items for next agenda. Sorry, yeah. Sorry.
Two queries. 2021 4 tree inspections,
Yeah.
quotes obtained, and then also 2020-15 ramp at Riverside. Property Management Committee in process of obtaining and assessing quotes.
I can answer that one. I have sort of struggled to find somebody willing to work on the triple SI area. We had decided previously that we were going to do a like-for-like replacement, and the one person who actually managed to get to the site since then said that they no longer want to do the work. So I am a little bit back to square one with that. We need to organise a meeting on this, and if anyone has any contacts or ideas of who can.
Who have you contacted, John?
Robert Nunn. Green. You give me a contact for Green Fingers, and I'm waiting on a response from them. So I will chase them.
I think they will probably take it off.
Yeah, and I've also asked another. I've also asked a local joiner who, on the basis of being a triple SI, wasn't too keen. So, as far as I was aware,
Well, keep going, sorry. Yeah, I'm thinking.
all right.
Is that what the smoke is?
As far as I was aware, the triple SI people were happy for us to work on the ramp. But is there any way we can get clarity as to what is allowed and what isn't allowed?
They
So
said-
it said we could
yeah.
have machines and stuff. But
They said
machines
that we
aren't
would
really-
have to get permission from the flood agency people, and then they want to, in order to issue us a permit, they would want to know what exactly we can read the plan, because until we put forward what machines we need or what works are going to happen, they won't. They want to know what we're taking onto the site, basically.
Yeah.
What I was thinking, John, was there's a firm on Framington, Groundworks. Can't remember what their name is, but they do all sorts of jobs.
If it comes to you, can you send that to me?
I'm sure you would search somebody when you help. And there's another firm called A. Wilson, I believe, are doing a bit of construction work out there. They could be interested as well. A. Wilson, they're based England.
Okay, I'll get back onto that and I'll have something for you for the next week.
It is incredibly frustrating though. I think this is a nationwide issue at the moment. With
Well,
getting works done.
It is, but it's very apparent that it is a village asset which is currently closed and
So, but I know what I mean is I totally empathise with the situation and appreciate of your efforts.
I mean, you don't want to spend more money just doing temporary repairs.
I think it's past temporary repair. It is unfortunate that it's gone on for as long, and since we decided that we needed to rebuild it, the costs of the materials are just about crazy.
Chair. Yes, I've probably missed something somewhere along the line, but can we not ask the county council, we've just done a load of work on the adjacent verge, either to offer expertise on dealing with the particular site, or to contribute as well, because it's going to be quite expensive, I imagine. Is it something we should get Trevor to put his hand in his slush fund? Or,
Now's the time to ask, because
discussion.
he's just had it refreshed, hasn't he, unless he's promised it elsewhere.
So would you like me to contact Trevor Thorne and see?
Yeah, I think, it may be that somewhere in the county council they've got someone with expertise.
Well, on the basis that we do a Riverside of it, it would be
it would fit, wouldn't it?
I think there's still got to do it.
They did such a good job, we'd like them to help us out.
And then you can come back and take another photo next to it.
Yes. Trevor could cut another ribbon. Yeah, like that.
I'll get on that straight away, and as soon as I have anything worth noting, I'll send an email out.
Anything else in there?
Tree inspection?
We didn't really get anything, we did have one quotes in, and then one of the people had suggested a different approach. They would have a look and told them that we wouldn't be able to guarantee them the work. They wanted us to say we would definitely come back to them to any work that we need doing. I said we couldn't do that, and then everybody's gone quiet on me. So it's really, I don't really know the best way forward, but we need to get it done. If you remember, the Rec Field Committee had looked into it and suggested we should get a professional survey done initially. We would then have something to work from that we could continue to review the trees on an ongoing basis. And then go back to people and get fresh quotes.
We have to. Anything else?
The tree on the side to be dealt with, though, hasn't it?
It's on their list.
It's done.
Oh, it's done, is it?
Done.
Oh, good.
Done, I'm sure it's done.
They don't bother to tell me when they get back. They just
Kevin and Brent were doing it on Friday, Saturday.
Brilliant.
Which one's this?
You
The
know
one
what?
that
You know
was
the one
down
that went
across
up
the
the ramp.
ramp. Right.
So it's,
I had
it's
reported
now-
it, but you know when you just think it sort of like disappears into the NCC reporting system black hole sometimes, and they don't hear back from them.
It is now all logged, and the brash has been
Brilliant.
put on the wild area.
That's good news.
Item 18 then, items for the next agenda. If everyone agree, what I'd like to do is, item 1 would be standard as in apologies. Item 2 would be accept the,
Item 1 will be election of the chairman because it's the first thing, it's the main meeting, we have to do that first. But I know what you mean, once we move on to the real business.
item 1 we best chairman. Then the absences. Then we have to adopt the policy and then co-opt new councillors.
Yeah.
And then as per the rest of the meeting, plus any things we've got there, anything comes up
And
now.
it's all the standard May stuff, so you'll be having all of the tick off the policies and appointments to committees and so on.
As Claire pointed out, May, first the meeting May, we have to start off with election of new chairman. I've done it for 1 year now. I'll be standing down as chairman of the next, so I'll start the very next meeting when we elect a new chairman. I'm hoping my deputy will take over for 1 year, and then the next deputy will take over for 1 year after him, but it's for people to nominate and etc. etc. So just so you're aware.
Yes, yes. I will take it on for 6 months.
You can't, you take it on for a year.
I can, well, okay, I'll take it on for a year and I will consider resigning.
Can I give my apologies now, because I shall be in isolation again?
You can, I'll see if I remember.
Does anyone else have anything else as items for the next agenda?
Come over the ramp on.
Right.
And there's a phone box, because hopefully I'll have a answer to that.
The chairs outside here in the whole area in front of the village hall.
That's,
The jet washing.
yeah, that's,
The jet washing, if you remember, were deferred to warmer times. And if everyone thinks now's a good enough time to do it, I mean, if I think it's going to get really cold, I can wash it then grid it. But you know, it
just
really
we
isn't
were
going to
concerned
take.
when we discussed it that we were effectively creating a slipping hazard by jet washing when it
The only thing I was concerned of after the last meeting, Tony and I walked down the ramp, and pretty much all of the paving stones in and around the seats are loose now.
They haven't got any grid, they haven't got any bits between them, have they?
Well,
Ramps.
yeah, they're
No,
loose,
it's more
they're
loose,
loose,
yeah.
and how pressure washing them is going to make it worse.
Yes.
So I think we need to
Do that bit first.
pressure wash it and then come up and eat. Well,
Yeah.
the right way to do it would be
I've got a lot of bag of sand.
Yeah.
I can order too much, so I can donate that sand to.
Well, if we wash it off, say on one day and then sand it the next day and just coat the area off, well, it's
And we said
doable.
the same with the bench and trap in the spring because we thought the treatment, whatever we put on them. But we talked about sanding them back, just tidy them up and then recoat, weren't we?
It was just to get them.
Oh, we're supposed to be
Yeah,
getting
yeah.
sessions
Well, that's
next
the
few
idea.
days, yeah.
Hopefully.
But yeah,
Well, I can. We're gonna sort out the record. I can get some time together to do that jet washing, and it's pretty much a one-man job. So.
we'll put for the chairs as well. Put out a shout out and let us know what's needed, and we can.
Well, I can again while the pressure washer's there, I can blast the worst of the grime off the chairs, but then I would hate to wash the paint off the chairs and make it worse.
You can't make them worse.
They need
I can.
No, seriously, you can't. The village hall have agreed that if you want water and power, you can use in here.
It is it's quite a loud, big piece of machinery, but it has its own water supply and it works on petrol, so it will be noisy, but I'll try and do it so it's petrol.
Well, some of the neighbours
And I will
won't
get-
complain.
Well, if we need to buy anything, if we need to buy anything, let me have the voices
So do you still need that on the agenda, or are you happy with?
No, it was just to
Yeah.
raise the profile because they're working on the Jubilee Garden.
I know,
and to make sure it's all gonna come together, so
At
that
the right
those
time.
chairs are looking beautiful when they
I
need
will
to.
get the cash auction ready for the next week.
Anything else? Anybody have anything else for the next agenda? Okay, so date of the next meeting is Monday the 9th of May, 7:15 in this room again. I'd like to thank you all for your support for my year, and close the meeting at 20:42.
Let's kick off